Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint some sheep with acrylics, and I'll be using the 12 Shades of Grey acrylic set. I showed you the oil set last week, so I'm playing with the acrylic set for the first time. And I'm also going to use some of my Turner acrylic gouache. This video is sponsored by Jerry's Artorama, and I'll put a link in the video description to all of the products that I used. I am going to be using some of the brushes here in the from the Turner acrylic gouache set. That's a mouthful. And I'm also going to use some of the synthetic black swan brushes that are supposed to mimic red sable. I used some of those with the oils and they worked really well, and I'm just curious to see how they work with the acrylics as well. So I'm going to be putting out some of my primary colors from the Turner set, and I'm also using some of the gray shades from the 12 Shades of Grey. The consistency seems to be about the same. Now, since I am using an acrylic and an acrylic gouache, there may be a little bit difference in sheen, but that's fine, because when you're done, anytime you want to mix your acrylic paints, I think it's absolutely fine. At the end, if you notice is any sort of discrepancy in like how shiny different spots of your painting are, then you'd give it just like a matte varnish. It's a good idea to varnish your paintings anyway because it protects them, but that way you'll be able to kind of make everything even Steven. So I'm just putting out a few colors. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to use absolutely. I'm just going to have fun with it. And the photo that I'm using is actually on my website, and I'll put a link in the video description. I took it at the Common Ground Fair the other day, and it is some adorable sheep that that I got a picture of. So that's what we are going to do. I'm going to start by sketching on with some watercolor pencils, because they'll just kind of turn into paint. It's kind of cool. We can use that. That's the 12 Shades of Grey set, by the way. It's the same as the oil. It's just an acrylic formulation. And I'm going to paint on a Da Vinci Pro panel. I really enjoyed using these for oils, so I'm curious to see how they work with acrylics. And I am going to sketch in with, I think, a bit of a brown. That way I know you'll be able to see it too. That one's a little worn down. I need to do some sharpening. And I'm also going to be kind of cropping my photo so I have fewer sheep, I guess. So I'm starting by sketching this first sheep here. I'm just getting the basic gesture of the body. You can always draw on like a separate piece of paper and then transfer it on using graphite paper. That's a great idea if you're not comfortable just kind of sketching right onto your surface. It's not that big of a deal if you're working with a canvas or a panel like this. It's much more of a big deal if you're working on watercolor paper, because you can really damage it when you erase. Just something to think about. Put the ears in there. Oh, I think it looks like a sheep. I think it does. I'm impressed with myself, if I do say so myself. There we go. We got one sheep. All right. Oh, we're counting sheep. I'll have you guys asleep in no time. We're going to do another one kind of behind him and up a little bit higher in the canvas. So we watched the sheepdog show at the Common Ground Fair. That was really neat to see how those dogs control the sheep. And what I didn't really understand was that if the farmers didn't have control of the dogs would actually eat the sheep. I didn't realize that they had a desire to eat the sheep. I just thought they had a desire to protect them, but no, they were thinking that yummy sheep, you know. I had no idea. I just thought they liked sheep as like they wanted to protect them. So they have to have like some amazing control that they don't eat the sheep that they're in charge of. It's like, oh my gosh, what an awful life, you know, having that temptation around all the time. Okay, I'm just trying to see. Oh, you know what? I think I actually drew a leg that does not belong to that sheep. So what I'm going to do is just kind of wash it away. A little water. Oh, works so well. You can do that on watercolor paper, but boy, it's awful slick here. That works pretty darn good. Okay, so we're going to get the right foot on this sheep. Now you should probably bring my monitor a little bit closer to me. I got it on the other side of my table there. I'm looking for my computer screen. Okay, I feel like this might be a little off, but I think I can fix that in the paint. I feel like that needs to be a little bit bigger. And this other little, I'm gonna have this other guy kind of going off the edge of the canvas because it'll help bring movement in, I think. You should be spending as much time looking at your reference photo as you are looking at your artwork when you're sketching. And I'm not even saying like, I'm not even thinking I'm drawing sheep. I'm like, I'm drawing the shapes that I see and the angles. So that's, it helps, I think, to not be so focused on what you're drawing, be more focused on just the shapes that you're drawing so you don't get yourself, you know, too worked up. Alright, so now that I have the basic idea of where my sheep are going to be, I am going to start putting in some color. I'm also going to want some nice sap green or some such thing. I've got this, maybe I'll add some of this permanent green light on my palette. And if anybody wants to know how I made my little disposable palette here, because I could have used the one in my Turner acrylic wash set, but I didn't want to wash it. So, so just let me know and I'll post a tutorial for that for you if anybody is so inclined, so interested. I think I want to use that big brush I just had. Okay, and now the general rule with watercolor, not watercolor, acrylics, is that you don't want to thin your paint more than 30% with water, or you will weaken the paint film. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I wet my brush and then I mixed up my paint. I know I do not have more than 30% water. So just keep that in mind. If you're working on paper though, if you wanted to get like a watercolor look and you're on paper or you're on fabric, you don't have to, well, fabric, if you're going to wash the fabric, you might want to be mindful of it, but generally for like paper, as long as it's an absorbent surface, you can thin it more than that. But if you're going on canvas or a board like this, you don't want to thin it more than that, or you'll weaken the paint film, and then you could have problems later on down the road. And I'm using a very textured stroke because, a little yellow here, I want it to kind of have like blurry foliage in the background, basically. A little bit of brown, and I'm not cleaning my brush in between because I want to kind of get patches of dark, patches of light. I don't want anything too bright. You just keep kind of dabbing on your paint. The water can help it flow, just like I said, don't get too much. Going in a little bit, I want kind of like a, now this isn't what's in the background of the real picture, you see fences and fields, and I just wanted to have a little bit, wanted to make sure my animals were going to be in focus. Just covering canvas. Oh, I want to show you the sides of this. So if you can either paint around to the edge or you can leave it plain, it almost be like in a floater frame. It's kind of nice, so you don't have to, you know, pay to frame it. If you just want to hang it up on your wall, you can put a couple eye hooks in the supports. I really enjoy painting on these wooden panels. They don't have the bounce that canvas does. Some people like that, some people don't. Now I think I want to put kind of a rolling hill in there, so I'm going to grab some green and yellow. I should have my palette over here a little bit more so you can see it. That's probably helpful, isn't it, guys? Probably. I want to put kind of like a rolling hill there. And then I'm just going to drag that across. I'm going to use some of the grayed yellow in there too. And then after I get all this background in, I'm actually going to let my my canvas dry, which won't take very long. Whoops, I got a little extra color in there. I'm not going to worry about it though. I'm just going to rinse my brush. I'm actually going to let my background dry so that I can go in with the sheep and not have to worry about disturbing any wet paint. The other good thing about that is if it's permanently dry, you've left plenty of time to let it dry. If you make a mistake, you can take like a wet Q-tip and you can wipe out you know, paint while it's still wet, so you kind of have a little bit of an extra kind of fix that you can do there. I do want to lighten up the crest of that hill a little bit more. I'm going to grab a little bit of white and a little bit of yellow. And even though that looks really bright over there on the palette, it's not going to be, because once I mix, this paint is still wet, once I mix it in, it's going to really tone down. I might decide to put a fence back there. I don't know. I'll wait until I'm about done and I see what my painting needs. That's a great thing. It's your world. You're the artist. You can do whatever you want. I would rather have a smooth brush stroke than a really crisp drawing there, so that's why I'm just doing these long brush strokes and letting it, letting it blush into the sheep a little bit, because I can paint over that. These are acrylics. It's not watercolor. I don't have to worry about preserving the white for our sheep. Isn't that wonderful? Just love it. Alright, I'm going to finish filling in my grass down here. Let me get the shadowy areas with a little more brown and blue in them under the sheep. And honestly, I've drawn it once. I'm not worried if I obliterate my drawing. I know I can get it back again. I need a little bit more cobalt blue here. That's sky blue. Honestly, I'm used to reaching for ultramarine, so this cobalt's slightly different. It's a little bit less intense. Not a big deal. If you know the way your colors go, if you know if they're more cool or more warm, you can work with any colors. Doesn't matter what they're called, what they're named, what the brand is. You know, it just comes down to your experience. Just gonna cool that down there. I'm gonna try not to get too much paint on my brush and canvas at one time, because I do notice when I'm painting small, that's where I get into trouble. I'm getting too much on there. And I'm gonna pull a little shadow over here because it'll help strengthen my design. And I have a brush load full and I hate to waste paint. Okay, there's my real reason. Alright, I think I want a little yellow ochre, and you know what? I think I'm gonna use that yellowy gray instead of yellow ochre because I have it on my palette, so I like to, you know, cross-reference stuff as much as I can. Cross-reference, cross-pollinate, whatever you want to call it. I was thinking about doing this tutorial live. After my live cast I did the other day, I was thinking, boy, I could totally... I was surprised, honestly, at how crisp it was and that it was HD. I didn't think that my internet and that YouTube could really do well at that, you know, living out in the country and everything, but I was very impressed. And I thought it might be fun. Would anybody interested in a live painting tutorial? If so, let me know. Let me know if you'd like that. I wouldn't do it that often, I don't think, but then I would feel like I don't have to be under the time crunch because it takes a really long time for videos to upload for me here. But if anyone was interested in doing like a live thing, I think it would be a lot of fun. So just let me know. If it's something anyone's interested, I'll consider it. Probably have to have somebody monitoring the comments for me and telling me what people are saying. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I'm just blending a little bit. It's easier to have it blended now. You can't blend it once it dries, so blend it now, and then I can always go back in and add more. In fact, I'm kind of racing to cover my background because I've got to go pick up my kids from school in a minute. Their practice is getting done, so you're probably thinking, why did she bother drawing those sheep on there to begin with? She's just covering them all up. It's just like writing a list, writing something down. Once you write it down, you commit it to memory. And I think it's the same way with your painting. Once you draw it, you're committing it to memory. And let's see, I'm just going to look back at my photo. I just want to make sure I've got plenty in there so that I don't have any bare spots and I don't have to try to remix what I've been doing here. Gotta tip it up because I'm not at an easel, so I don't know if I'm missing spots. I'm missing a few, so I'm gonna go in and throw in some more shadow and just kind of spread that around a little bit. I got a little purple in there. Isn't that unexpected? That's alright. That's alright. You know, as long as we have our values okay, we're gonna be fine, folks. Fine and sherry wine. Alright, so I'm gonna let this dry and then go pick up my kids from school, make some dinner. A couple hours later, we will catch back up and see how this is all progressing. How's that sound? What do we got going on? We've got a little white back there. I don't like that. Yeah, remember, better to get those strokes right and obliterate some of your drawing than to have these awkward bits that we can't, you know, do anything about later. Alright, so we'll let that dry and we'll be back. Okay, we're back. It's a couple hours later. My paints have dried to a beautiful matte finish and it's got a nice smooth surface to it. I do like these panels quite a bit. They're quite different from canvas, but I really like them. I like the smoother surface and I like this, there's no bounce, but if you don't like those properties, that might not be the surface for you. Just wanted to let you know there. Alright, so now I'm going to bring back the shapes of my animals here because I totally lost them when I was painting the background. That's not a big deal. Remember, I've drawn it, I've sketched it on my canvas, it's been, or panel as the case may be, and you know, it's been in my mind's eye, so that's pretty much the important thing for me to have is that, you know, the original marking down of the composition. I find that to be the most helpful. So I'm just blocking this foreground animal. This is going to be the one that's got the most dramatic shading. You can see from the photo on my website that this one is the one that really stands out, and I want to make sure that it's really kind of taking the show here. And I'm going to have a nice bright highlight up here, so that's why I'm starting with white. I'm going to pick up some of this grayed yellow from the 12 Shades of Grey set. Kind of add it in the middle of the body here. And then just kind of work with little tapping strokes, blending it upward, because I want there to be a texture. Sheep have that gorgeous woolly texture. Of course, they're woolly, they're sheep. But you know, they've got that nice texture, and I want to use an economy of brush strokes if I can, meaning I don't want to fuss with it too much. I want it to, I'm taking a little bit of this almost burnt sienna color, adding it to that grayed yellow. I want to have the feeling of these animals as casual, you know, it's just a casual grouping of sheep, as opposed to a formal grouping of sheep. You know, they're not being fancy sheep today. They're just hanging around, chewing their cud, waiting for the sheepdog show to start. Kill me. Okay, so I'm just dabbing on. I'm also being mindful of the shadows as I do this. So again, I can keep with the economy of brush strokes. I won't have to go back in and add a lot. Tap, 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 tap. Down through the neck. I'm trusting that the few lines that I can see from my drawing are accurate. And yes, I say drawing weird. I don't know why. I never knew I said it weird until I got on YouTube. Everyone's like, you talk funny. I'm like, well, I'm from Maine. The fact that you can understand me at all is kind of a miracle. My accent isn't that bad. Alright, now I want to deepen the shadow a little bit more. And actually I want to tone down some of that, some of the yellow and the red. I'm going to go in with a little bit of purple, which won't really tone down the red, but it will help with the yellow. That grayed lavender color. I'm calling it grayed lavender. It's probably called purple gray or something. I'm not, you know, like I said, you don't need to know the names of your paints. You just need to know how they behave. That way you can paint with any line of paints. You can use any palette. As long as you get your values right, you're going to be all set. Still dabbing. I can go in with a little bit of white if I feel like I'm darkening too much, and also pull up a little more texture. This is a filbert, this brush here I'm using, which is, it's got, well, that doesn't really help you. You probably see that better there. It's got a rounded shape. It's like a flat, but it's got a rounded shape at the top instead of it being, you know, flat across. Really great if you do any portraits. I find it good for natural things like fur. Especially this woolly fur where I don't want strands, I just want to get that that texture. And it doesn't leave like this hard edge. Like if I was doing this with a flat, I would have these hard edges. And if I was doing it with a round, I'd probably be putting down more paint than I wanted to. So experiment. You might find that you love painting with this kind of brush or another kind of brush. You're never going to know though until you experiment. I'm going to grab a little bit of blue there. I'll get a little more purple and get a little bit of blue. I need to cool that down a little bit. I was getting in a little green. I don't want that on my sheep. It's always good to take a break from your painting too. Like I went and picked my kids up, and then I made dinner, and we ate dinner and cleaned up the kitchen, and now I'm back to painting again. And you really see things, I think, a lot more accurately. Now I'm going to clean my brush because I need to go back to yellow and the whiter color. And also, if you finish a painting and you're not happy with it, if you can let it go overnight and then come back and look at it, you'll usually be quite pleasantly surprised with how well it came out. I think you just need that, you know, a little bit of time to get away from it. I'm going to flick out the ears. Get a lot of control with a filbert too. Try to get that stroke right, just because it's going to be more difficult to go in and fix it, and just try not to fuss with it. I know it's hard. It's really tough not to fuss with it. I'm going to try this kind of grade brown. I think it's brown, grade brown. I'm typically not, I typically mix my own grays, so it's been really neat to try these paints from Jerry's Artorama. It just kind of breaks me out of my comfort zone, and also it does save you some time as far as mixing, which is neat. Oh, actually I like that. You know what? I really like that grade brown. I think that would have been, I'm going to add some more of that in here. That's better. It's not so red as the burnt sienna I was using. I don't think you could, I don't think you'd want to do a painting with just the 12 Shades of Grey sets, because I think it would be too muddy. So you got to temper everything. Alright, so I need to get a little shadow on the face. Just kind of dry brushing a little shadow there. And I might need to make the snout a little bit longer, but I'm not going to yet because I'm not 100% sure. So I'm taking a little more of that grade. I got some on my brush. I actually am going to wipe some off and grab some white. Hope I'm not muttering. Hope you can hear me. Hope you can hear me over the rain. Oh my goodness, we've had so much rain today. Alright, I'm going to put the feet in. That foot in back there. Getting this leg in back here, which is actually going to be more shadowed, but I just need to put it in so I can see where the heck it's supposed to be, because I've kind of lost it. Kind of lost my definition there. I'm going to have to go in with some more grass. I did see. Oh, and our little sheep is a little too thin, so we need to fatten this little sheep up here. There we go. Alright, I'm going to leave that one alone for right now. And I'm going to skip over to this guy. I'm just wiping my brush off. And I am getting into that grade brown. I'm actually going to start in with a shadow because I want to make sure I get some contrast right between both of those sheep, so I separate them from each other. And actually, in my composition here, I moved this sheep a little bit further ahead from the other one because I wanted it to just... Actually, no, it's about the right place. I was looking at the other sheep in the picture. Yeah, it's about in the same place as it was in the photo. Sometimes you have to move your subjects around a little bit to make a more interesting composition, and that's completely fine. Absolutely fine to do that. And by the way, obviously, but just in case anyone, you have permission to paint the photos I put on my blog. Absolutely. That's why I put them there. Okay? Absolutely. You have complete permission to use those as reference files. I know it's hard as an artist to find good reference files, especially if you live somewhere and you're trying to get a picture of something that you just don't have access to. You know, I totally get it. Okay, so this is his foot. Then he's got another one back here. I know it looks like I'm drawing a little stick figure, but I just wanted to get those lines in the right place. And 2 feet, 2 legs there. Okay. You're probably thinking that, what the heck, that doesn't look like a sheep. It will. Have faith. It's gonna look like a sheep before we're done. Alright. There's a little face in there. I love a little sheep face. It's so cute. So last year I went to the Common Ground Fair and I bought some wool with grand plans. I bought some wool and then I went to the supermarket and I bought some Kool-Aid, and I had these grand delusions of grandeur. Let's just call them delusions of grandeur because that's what they were. I thought I am going to start dyeing my own wool and making these fantastic felt creations. Mind you, I've never felted anything in my life. I've never spun yarn, but you know, you get so inspired because you see these people doing it, like, oh, I could do that. I'm gonna make all my own yarn now. They're still sitting in the bag that I bought them in. It's so sad. It really is. I saw more wool. I did not buy more wool this year. I was like, I gotta use the wool that I have. I bought this, like, you know, natural colored wool because I thought, well, I am going to dye my wool with Kool-Aid And I am going to felt some beautiful applique designs. I didn't know what I was going to do with them after that. Maybe make I don't know, make felted beads. Those are pretty cool. But anyways, my my dreams never came to reality. Not yet anyways. I guess, you know, they always could. And then my friend Lorraine said, "Oh, you want some wool?" And she brought over some wool from her sheep. So I got more wool than I know what to do with. And that's so true because I really don't even know what to do with it. So if you have any advice, feel free to leave it in the comments section because I could use it. Alright, I'm just going to dab in this area here because I need to bring out my highlights and I need to shape the bottom of that face a little bit. We are still in just the almost blocking in stage. It's amazing how long some of these paintings take. Ah, they kind of look like sheep though. We're doing good. We're cooking with fire. Do a little more. I'm putting some white on my brush and I'm just going to start tapping in the wool on the sky too. Economy of brush strokes. If I get it right the first time, then I won't have to do it again. I'll be good to go. Maybe I'll switch. I do like the filbert. Let me see if I have a smaller filbert. I don't have all my mimic brushes here because I use some for oils and I don't like to use them. I don't like to share brushes between mediums. I mean, I'll take an acrylic brush and use it with watercolor if I have to, because that's not going to hurt the brush, but I don't like to mix between oils and watercolor or oils and acrylic because the residue can come off of the brushes and make a mess of your paints. So I don't like to switch brushes. So I only had one set of the Mimic Black Swan brushes. I think they're actually better for acrylics than oils now that I'm using these few with my acrylics. They're especially with this viscosity, like of the Turner Acryl Gouache and the 12 Shades of Grey. They're soft-bodied paint, and these are handling that very well. The Da Vinci panel is considered rough, coarse textured, but I find the paint to smooth on this a little bit easier than like a cotton. So, you know, it does have a texture to it. It is rough to the touch, but like a fine sandpaper kind of. So I think, you know, it might be even fun for some pastels and stuff, but it's not like, I don't feel like it's hard to move the paint around on, I guess is what I'm saying. And I got some really great blending with the oils, the plain painting I did last week on the bigger canvas, so the bigger panel. So for what it's worth, I do think the Black Swan brushes are a little bit better for acrylics than oils, especially the way I paint. It seems like I need a hog brush on with my oils to get them to move around until I'm just at the final stages, and then these softer brushes are good. But that's just my observation. If you've used those brushes and you want to offer any tips or tricks, I got a drop of water there. Did you see that? I got a drop of water and it lifted my paint off of the panel. So you want to be careful of that when you rinse your brush off, that you don't drip water. All right, see if I can bring the highlights out on the head. Alright, that looks about right. I'm bringing the highlights down on the ham hock, I guess. I don't know what you call that. I'm a vegetarian. The leggy part. I don't even know if that's an edible sheep part. I don't know. These are wool sheeps. I'm sure they don't eat them. Right? I think they're wool sheeps. Sheep. I don't language good. Alright, we're going to let that dry. You know what, this is bothering me. You know what I'm going to do? I feel like that's too hard of a shadow. So I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm not going to wash it because I don't want a hard line. I'm going to pick up some of that grade brown. And I'm just going to soften that by tapping along the edge. There we go. Oh, that's more pleasant now, isn't it? That's looking a little too purple. I'm thinking I'm going to do a little bit of that over here too. I don't know what I was thinking with that purple. I probably should have grabbed a little bit of blue. That would have graded up a little bit more than the purple. The purple just intensified the red. There we go. I'm not opposed to a little purple. I think it's going to make those yellows in the landscape kind of pop. But it was just a little much. Okay, so now this guy over here, he's mostly in the shadow. He's got a very yellow tint to him. I find this yellow to be a little too green. So I'm just going to give it a dab of the purple. So this is the grade purple and I'm the grade yellow, and I'm mixing them because I feel like it's got that yellow base, the sheep, and you can see what I mean in the on my website. But I just feel like I need to tone it down. It's just a little too bold. And my bright yellow is definitely too bold. So again, I'm kind of resketching in the face because I lost that definition, but it's not a big deal. And grab a little bit of white. I like using a dirty brush because it kind of makes all your colors cross-pollinate really well, makes them go together. And I'm looking at the negative space. I know the leg, got the knee there. And we've got the leg kind of coming down like that. And I think, you know, in hindsight, I would have made sure not to cover up so much of my sketch. I think that's taken a little more time on this painting for me. If I hadn't covered so much of my sketch, if I'd been a little more careful when I was painting in the background, then it wouldn't be as much of a challenge here. But it's all good. Just gonna give you that info so you can save yourself a little time. Okay, I feel like that's about where I want that. Maybe the head a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm just gonna try grabbing white on my brush and just kind of tapping it into that wet paint and seeing what that does. This one has a definite, like, kind of almost like, looks like an old lady perm up here. You know, that tight curl. My Grammy used to get these these super curly perms. And you never see, you know, it's only on, you know, women of a certain age that have that really curly perm. And she would wear a little plastic cap on her hair when she went out if it was raining. The only time I ever wore one of those was when I was in my sister's wedding, and I had my haircut really short. I actually love my haircut really short. I haven't had it short in years, but but I had it fixed, and it was pouring. It was pouring like it was today, my sister's wedding day, and we had to get across town to the church, and it was just crazy weather. And she forgot her marriage license. So it was so funny. She should probably kill me that I'm saying that right now. It all worked out. But you know, you always forget something, you know, especially when it's an important day. I thought my mother was going to have a heart attack. And they're probably watching this right now too. Hi Mom. Hi Bri. Alright, let's get this face here a little bit flatter on the top. When you're loading up a flat, whoops, I just got yellow in there. When you're loading up a flat brush, let me show you in another one. I want to show you this because they're different than round. So if you're loading up a flat, you want to kind of, let me bring this up here. You want to kind of pull, try not to get paint all the way up to the metal part. That's a ferrule. You don't want it up that high. You want to kind of pull your brush back so you get that nice chisel edge. And then you have a lot of control when you do that. And then when you load a round brush, you want to kind of twist it. Like get it in the paint and twist it, and that will give you that fine point. So it's just it just depends on what you're loading up for a brush. Just wanted to give you that little tidbit. I don't need that white there, but I wanted to show you that anyhow. But I can use it to give myself that definition that I'd lost. It's kind of good to have this in real time, I think. You know why? Because you're seeing me get into trouble and get out of trouble, and I think that's probably, you know, you put it on fast, put a little music on there, you can look real clever and slick, and you watch it in real time, like, whoa, look at that, she totally messed up there, and she's gonna tell me how to fix it, so I won't get into that mistake. Not used to painting with small brushes. I usually paint with big ones, so this is I'm not used to how little paint a little brush holds, so I'm just playing that. No mind the sound effects in my house. The kids are upstairs. I think they're done their homework because they're awfully loud now. So I think they're playing. Okay, I'm gonna get this little leg in there, back there. And this will be a good brush to go in and refine a few things. And let's see, we've got this knee here. Can always tone this down, not a big deal. I know it's a little bright. It's gonna be fine. Let me just get that ankle in there. And the hoof is pretty much hidden. You know that? So I'm just kind of getting the gesture in there. Trying to get the simple lines that encapsulate your subject. Okay. And I think I'm also going to work on the feet over here too, just to make sure that that I have that in before I go back in with any painting with any force. And I want to share this tip here. So I have palette paper in here on a wet paper towel. I put a couple marbles on there, these flat back, just decorated marbles. You can use rocks, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it will keep your palette paper from rolling up on you if you go and you leave it and you come back. That happens with these smaller pieces, or if you don't leave the palette paper attached to the pad. But I like that I can put a lid on this and I can come back later and finish it, because I'm a mom, I'm busy, I can't, you know, I can't always spend as much time painting as I would like. Now, if your paint's not flowing, you can dip your brush in the water. Just make sure you don't thin it more than 30% water to paint, and you're going to be fine. Okay, that's just if you can remember the 30% rule, that is going to help you so much. It'll make your paintings last longer. In many cases, you won't need to buy so many mediums. Let's see, now I'm looking at this guy's ear. You really don't see that much of the ear. It's kind of foreshortened. So I'm just kind of getting that up there. It looks a little awkward. Yeah, it looks a little awkward. So I'm gonna come back to that, because when I get in a situation where I'm not exactly sure, I need to blow that picture up and look at it a little bit better. That's it. That's the only downside. Okay, so if you're painting, the sheep wouldn't stand still long enough for you to do this. But you know, when you're working from a photo, you do have, you know, sometimes you can't see something as closely as you'd want. Of course, if you're painting from animals in real life, they're not going to hold still for you. So, you know, you gotta kind of, I guess you win some, you lose some. But that is the thing about painting from a photograph that you didn't take yourself. If you weren't there, if you couldn't closely examine it, it is kind of tricky. But oops, I got a cat here and there. I wonder if my cat was down here on my table earlier. So yeah, I think I might have to blow that picture up a little bit just to get a look at that ear. We'll see if it looks like it needs it. Now I'm just kind of glazing over a little bit with that grayed brown. That's like I think that's a color I'm using the most on this. A glaze is a thin transparent layer, and I'm just doing that with paint and water, but I am keeping the 30% rule in my mind. I do want a little bit of browner. I think I want to try some of that. I think this is the grayed orange. I feel like I need a little bit of that in this leg. And a little bit here. It's funny how they have, I mean, it's very subtle, but you can see the difference in the colors. And when you're painting, really, you know, we're painting white on, you know, all this is essentially a white animal, and we have to look for all of those, you know, little subtle differences between them. Like one is a little more yellow, one's a little bit more like of a neutral gray, one's a little bit more orangey. You know, you have to just look for those nuances. Okay, now right now at this point, I want to, even after kind of like demolishing my drawing, there's still some areas that I didn't hit with the paint. I think maybe because I was getting glare on there and I didn't see it. Blaming the glare. So I'm gonna find that tube of green that I used and make spread it a little bit more. Of course, it's the one tube of paint I do not see at the moment. Maybe I have enough wet green here that I can do that. I might have enough. And I'm going to make it a little dark anyway, so I can grab a little of that blue. Just going to go in there, and it's kind of in a shadowy area anyway, so I'm not that worried about it, but I do need a little bit more of that green as soon as I find it. I'm going to pause the camera and find that green. And like 5 seconds after I paused it, it was right there underneath the wrapper. I mean, seriously, that always happens. Alright, so green, blue, a little bit of that burnt sienna, kind of brownish color, and that's going to give me a nice shadow color, and I'm just going to kind of add it in here and there so that it doesn't look like I'm just trying to fill in anything. I want it to look very natural. So when you do have to go in and you have to fill in an area where you accidentally didn't paint enough background in or whatever, just keep adding it here and there so it looks like it was on purpose. And that will, and I'm not crazy about that purple. I think that was, sometimes when I'm not painting at an easel, I'm painting, because this is small and it's just better for my camera to paint this way, better lighting and stuff. But for me, looking at an angle, a lot of times there'll be glare and I won't realize that I didn't get paint on a certain area because I'll just think it's just a little bit of glare. So just something to think about. You know, you might want to tip your painting and look at it at a different angle. Okay, here we go. Alright, I am going to tip it up right now. That's it. I think that's where I'm getting, where I get that little bit of sparkle, that little bit of glare. I think it's probably some of the coarseness of the panel. And I haven't painted acrylics on these before, so it's like anything, a little bit of a learning curve. Can't believe it's October already. It's crazy. Where did the fall go? Whoops, that's very blue. We do not have bluegrass here. There's no bluegrass in Unity, Maine, unless you're talking about the music. Then yes, there was. Oh yeah, we'll put some dirt. Brown. Put some brown in there. Got some dirt on the ground. Of course we do. Some dead grass because it's the fall. Yeah. And look at this. So we've got this shadow here, bringing it up here, and kind of makes a V composition. We've got this line kind of bringing your eye across. We want these interesting shapes and lines that are going to create movement in the painting. Even though it's a pretty simple painting of some sheep grazing, we still want to get that movement in there. Acrylic brushes, you never want to let the paint sit in your brush. You want to keep it. I want to show you my brush basin. There's lots of different ones out there, but instead of using margarine tubs, I use an actual brush basin. And so right here you've got these ridges, and that's what you gently wipe your acrylic brush across, or your watercolor brush, to clean it. Now if you're using watercolors, you take your brush out and you can put it in your jar and you're fine. But if you're using acrylics, afterwards you want to kind of rest it. You want to keep it in the water, but a lot of times what I try to do is, oh, there's like a dead mosquito in there. How lovely. You can rest it in here to keep the tips moist while you finish up painting. So a lot of times I'll have this a little bit lower so I can rest that in there, because you really don't want the wood resting in the water. You just kind of want the tips. So don't leave it in the water overnight. If they're wooden handle brushes, take them upstairs and wash them, or to your sink and wash them. And but keep the bristles wet until you have a chance to wash them. When acrylic paint dries on the bristles, it ruins your brush. Even if you can bring it back with a brush cleaner, it's not as good as it was if you didn't damage it to begin with. So I just want to do that little public service announcement. So so hopefully your brushes will last you for a long time, because they can be expensive. They're an investment. You want to make sure you get your use out of them. I'm going to go right in, I think, with my highlight color, with my white, and I'm going to be bold and just really try to get the lightest details here. I really like the angle of that ear. I think I got that one right. This one, actually, that's not right. I'm going to lift it right off while I can. It's still wet. I could tell as soon as I put that brush stroke down, I could tell it should not have been rounded at the top. It should have been rounded at the bottom. All right, so, you know, don't be shy. If you know you've done something wrong in the painting, I hate to say wrong, but you know you got something that's not exactly the way you want it, wipe it right away. Wet Q-tip works great for that too. All right. We're going to fix that. That needs to be definitely the ear needs to go up at the edge, needs to be concave at the top. There we go. Much better. You'll know, usually you know, like instantly, as soon as you do it, it's like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted to do. That wasn't right. We'll fix it right away. That one's got a little sliver of highlight on it. And let's go over here. That, I feel like that is not quite right either. I'm going to see if I can, you know what? I probably wouldn't even be able to see that back ear, but since I put it in, I had to change of perspective there. I am going to grab some of that darker paint. And this is kind of where seeing things in real life comes in observation. I know enough to get myself in trouble. I know enough to know that if the ear's going that way on that side, I can't even see it in that picture. I kind of made that up. You do that sometimes when you're painting. You don't see something, so your brain makes it up and you paint it in there. Since I did that, I need to make sure that I'm just going to see if any of the other sheep that I took a picture of. Yep, I do have one that has a better ear on the angle that I should be painting it in, and I'm looking at that sheep, which is the one to the left of the sheep on the photo on my blog, if you're looking at that. And I'm just going to put that in there. So, you know, sometimes you pull from one reference photo, then sometimes you pull from another one. I do that all the time. I usually mix up a few reference photos to get the picture I'm looking for. So, and that's what I did there to make that ear fit. Okay, now I'm going to do the eyes and the nose. I'm going to go right ahead and use some black, but I'm going to tone it down with that nice brown gray from the 12 Shades of Grey set, because on its own I think it's a little too stark. It's going to look like a black hole, and I don't like that look. Alright, so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to do this eye back here first. I'm going to start with a circle. You see that? I've got a circle. And then I'm going to just kind of pull a little shape off in front towards the nose and just flick a little shape back. And I could go with a smaller brush. I'm just not big on the smaller brushes. Just a little bit of dark under the mouth where they're eating there. And really, that's all you need. You don't want to overdo it. I'm going to bring that a little closer for you so you can see. It's nothing fancy. Okay? Nothing fancy. You can do this. It only looks great because you're seeing it like at a distance. So you probably don't think it looks great. You're probably like, oh gosh, what is she doing? Okay. And then this one, this is really foreshortened. You're just going to have a little bit of a curve there. That's it. And the nose is pretty dark, so I'm going to go in and darken that snout right up. That might be a little much, but I think it'll be fine. You might not want that much darkness on yours. You can go back in with white. I'm also going to darken up the hoofs while I'm at it. I'm not going to pristine white hoofs. And you can actually have it a little bit blacker on the hoofs. They'll give you a little bit of value scale. It'll give you, you know, that darker dark that everything else kind of puts everything else in perspective. Plus it'll help kind of sink them into the grass a little bit. They're kind of floating because we haven't painted any individual blades of grass or anything. And so for this guy back here, we're going to do another eyeball. Let's see. And you can see his eye pretty well. I'm just going to do like a little semicircle. And he's got a little bit of a shadow on his face, but really that's about all you see for his eye. You see a little nose there. And really, that's about all she wrote. Okay, so now that I've got that black, I've got some brought over here from where I was mixing, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of that, because it's kind of the darkest that we're going to have on their fur. And I'm going to add a little detail around the ear there. And maybe just a little bit kind of breaking their woolly head from the body, kind of giving a little bit of definition there, a little bit of contrast. I can dab that in anywhere I feel like there's not enough contrast. I've got to close down that tab on my computer because that keeps beeping at me. There we go. Bye-bye, Facebook. And if you get a little too much black, then you just dab the other color on over it. Not a big deal, guys. Nothing to worry your pretty little head about. Okay, we'll do, let's see, do we need any of this over here? I feel like we do need maybe a little bit. That's a little too dark. We're going to go with the brown, the grade brown, not your vivid brown. A little bit behind the ear. All these little touches are just making everything match a little bit more. That is way too dark. You want some contrast, but that's a little much. Going in with a mix of the white and the grayed brown and just lightening that up a little bit. I could use a little more shadow on that face. You hear somebody is laughing their head off upstairs. That's a good noise. That's a noise I'll take. Okay, that's really shiny because it's kind of wet there, but I think you can probably get the gist. And let's take a little more of that dark. Again, the black and that grayed brown, and I'm just dabbing it over here. I can define under that ear a little bit now that it's dry too. And I don't want to look at I want to look at the ear that is on the other sheep, as this one, because I had to do a little creative ear reconstruction. And maybe a little bit of shadowing on the face, because their face is that face is a little lighter than it ought to be. And I'm going to add a little bit of water, make a glaze. I don't have any mediums handy right now. I do have mediums. I do have quite a few mediums, but they're not right here in front of me, and so I'm going to make do. Alright, and let's see, this over here, I don't feel like I have enough blend there. I am going to mix a little bit of white in that grayed brown, and I'm going to paint this area. I just felt like it was a little too splotchy. And then if I want to soften up the end of this nose, I can. Oops, there's too much water. Oh, I had a drip of water on my bristles, and look what happened. Now I got a big old blob right there. Not a problem, blot it off, carry on. I think when you see me make a mistake, I'm hoping it might help you if you make that mistake, or that, not even a mistake, my goodness, if it happens to you, you can say, oh, I know what to do. I got a big blob on my painting, but that's not a big deal, because all I have to do is just blot it off. No reason to freak out. Alright, so now we're going to make some little grasses. I think I want, let's see, I've got some yellow there. Let's see if the, oh, better blot that off. Do I have enough yellow? I'm going to make some, I already have some brown and some yellow. I'm just going to make some kind of yellow ochre color with that, I think. I don't like to add new colors after I've been painting. I like to keep with what I've been using. That's why I usually lay my palette out at the beginning. And then I just replace my colors if I need them. Like, I'm going to add a little more yellow because I don't have enough. But, you know, honestly, with a small canvas like this, I just put out small amounts at a time, because otherwise I'll end up throwing a lot of paint away. And I don't like to do that, so I'd rather not waste. And grab a little of that white. There, see, that's making a really nice hay kind of straw color. And I think I'm going to switch to one of those skinnier brushes. Let's see, one of these black swans I haven't used yet. I want something with a longer bristle. These all do have pretty short bristles. This one right here is decent. It's still probably only like maybe a centimeter long. I don't think it's even a centimeter. Let's see. That's about how long it is. It'll be fine. I'm just going to be flicking up little grasses. And I'm going to have some green there. Good idea to blot your brush off on a towel before you load it up. And now I'm just going to flick up. Now that looks really light. That looks too light. So let's give a little bit of, a little more brown and a little more green in there. Let's flick up some grasses. Now you're going to see more, you're going to see bigger grasses towards the bottom of your paper. That's going to give you, or your bottom of your canvas, because you're going to have more, it's going to be closer to the viewer, so you're going to see larger blades of grass. You're going to see more detail, and that's going to help give your picture depth. That's why it's all blurry and just smudgy back there, because that's what we need it to be. Okay. And you know, it's in context when you see some of the stuff next to, next to that dark background. It looks so bright. I think I'm going to need to make this paint the consistency of cream, and still I'm keeping within the 30% dilution, but if I don't, I won't get those crisp lines. Actually, a liner would be better. I'm going to go grab a liner brush. Hold on a minute. Alright, this is a liner brush. See how long those bristles are? That's going to hold a lot of paint. So I'm going to wet it, and then I'm actually going to, normally we'd blot our brush off, but I want it to be able to carry a lot of paint. So I've kind of mixed up a puddle that's pretty juicy, and I'm twirling my brush in it. So now I've got all of this paint, and it will almost work like a pen. I can keep flicking up strokes of grass without reloading. And you know, you could use a fan brush to get a bunch of different strokes of grass, but a lot of times you get that telltale fan shape and it doesn't look very natural. So if you do that, I wouldn't do it a lot. I would do maybe a few with a fan, and then I would do the rest individually. We could try that. Do you guys want to try that? Let me grab a fan brush. We'll do that for a couple, and then we'll do the rest with a liner. Okay, 3 brushes I wanted to show you. I've got a rake, which is really cool because it's like a flat, but it's got like the bristles are kind of like trimmed or flagged so that you have like just a thin few amount of brushes at the end, so you get these little grass-like or fur-like strands. I've got a small fan, hog bristle fan, and I've got a large hog bristle fan. The nylon fans I think are going to be a little too blendy for that. You'd use those more for blending. These will give you more of like a stiff kind of like grass. But I'm going to start with a rake, and I'm just going to like load up. You can probably see even more now that I've loaded it up how the bristles are very sparse at the end. I'm going to just start by picking up some of those colors, and I'm just kind of tapping the ends in so I end up with a variety of different shades on there. And I'm just going to flick it around the feet. I need to have it a little bit lighter, I think, though, because it's not really showing up that well. They flick it in there. Have to be careful, though, because you will start to get that kind of telltale fan brush. Now, or rake brush. This is more of like a decorative painting brush, so you might not notice this with like your regular fine art brushes because it is more of a specialty or special effects brush. Just try to be random when you use it. Don't like line up all your strokes or it's going to look very awkward. But you can see it does make, you know, every stroke is like kind of 5 or 6 strokes with a liner brush. Now I'm going to switch over to this one, loading it up the same way, just kind of getting it on the tips. I can be a little rougher with this brush though because it's a hog brush and they're very versatile. And I know I've explained it before, but yes, I'm a vegetarian. Yes, I use hog brushes. No, I do not want to use Kolinsky sable brushes because hog bristles are a byproduct of the meat industry. You know, I do appreciate the fact that they're not wasting any parts of the animal. My family is not vegetarian, just me and one of my daughters is. So, you know, the meat is getting consumed. So I guess I feel that it's not as bad to have, you know, I'm glad that the whole animal is being used, I guess. So that's why I don't have as much of a problem with hog brushes. Plus they are going to stay out of the landfill because they last so long. But I don't want to support the fur industry because it's just so wasteful. They don't, you know, these little tiny animals are just killed for their fur. They're not, you know, they don't feed a family. They don't, you know, and it's a lot of cruelty. I just, you know, gray area, shades of gray, just like the paint, shades of gray. Okay, so then I've got this middle range with the medium-sized brush. And then with my larger brush, I'm going to load it up the same way. Maybe even go a little bit lighter, go in a little bit of white. I always feel a little bit like Bob Ross when I have my fan brushes out. Okay, get a little more yellow in there, get a little more white. We're going to brighten that up. And then kind of coming off from the edge of the canvas. Oh, I think I need just a touch of water in there though, because that paint is a little too stiff. It needs to flow. I can pull up longer strands of hay from the edge. And I kind of like the texture of that kind of dry brush look. Now I've got this nice full texture of the grasses in the foreground. Now I can go in with my liner and I can put in some individual grasses, and I'm just loading up in the middle of this mishmash where I've mixed all my colors. and I could put in a few deliberate strokes, and then it looks pretty good. I wouldn't do everything with one fan brush. I would definitely, you know, throw in a few individually painted with a liner, use a couple different sizes. There's all kinds of different brushes available depending on what kind of effects you're looking for. There's brushes for foliage, there's brushes for fur and hair. There's so many out there. So many to discover. I think that's a little much. I'm gonna soften that. And now, I mean, I'm going to pretty much call this painting done. I do like to usually look at it for a little bit and decide if I need some other highlights. So let me just tip it to myself and look here. Okay, I think maybe on the backs I'll do a little bit of highlighting, and I really liked using that filbert, that first filbert I started with, so I think I'm going to go back to that, and I'm going to get a little bit of that white and just kind of tone it down with just a touch of maybe the yellowy gray color, and just add a little bit of highlight here and there. I think I need a touch more white though, because I feel like that's not quite bright enough, and this is kind of the last highlights that I'm doing. I've hardly got any space left on my palette to use, but that's alright because I haven't wasted. I never did use that purple. I squirted that out and never ended up using it. I just want to get the kind of that bright highlight. I want to make sure there's some texture there. I feel like I have some moisture on my brush I don't want. I'm just going to go in and tap in my brightest highlights. And I just want to make sure there is a lovely woolly texture at the top of the sheep. I just want to make sure I don't end up with really super distinct lines if I don't need them. It's okay to get the kind of the texture, the roundness of like their rump and the muscle and all of that stuff. And you definitely want the texture of that wool, so that's why you're using like a pouncy stroke for that. Gonna round out the belly a little bit. Don't be afraid to tone down your white if it's a little too dark, too bold. I got so many colors going on that I ended up picking up a little bit of blue in that. I want to blot that off a little bit. And I want to put a little bit, this one's pretty good here in the middle, I think. Maybe just a little, get rid of that hard edge up there. Give it a little more texture. And I think that does it. Oh, you know what? I should have a little tail on this guy. Let me just put that in there. Needs to be a little bit darker. And there we have it. I think that looks pretty much like 3 sheep in the pasture. That's my goal. I still think that tail needs to be a little bit darker, so I'm kind of fussing with it a little bit. Fussing with my mix of colors. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and if you have any questions about the products I used, you can check out the video description because I will have links to all of them at Jerry's Artorama. I want to thank them for sponsoring this long video tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you a little moment of zen for your weekend painting, and don't forget to sign your name and your painting is complete. And as always, you can always rewind and pause and go back to any spots you missed. Please share this video on Pinterest or Facebook, wherever you like to share your favorite videos, and please drop a thumbs up on the video. It really helps out my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.